2012 regular meeting of the Frankfort Board of Commissioners to order. I'd like for us to stand for the invocation to be given by the Reverend Gary Hager of the Westview Baptist Church, and then remain standing for the pledge of allegiance to our flag. Reverend Hager.
Let us pray. Our Father, I think of all of the pain and headache, the tears and sorrow, the greed and cruelty unloosed in the world today. Help me to be an instrument of yours to alleviate the pain through this day, returning good for evil, returning soft answers for sharp criticisms, being polite when I receive rudeness, being understanding when I am confronted by ignorance and stupidity. So may I, in gentleness and love, check the hasty answers, choke back the unkind words, and thus short-circuit some of the bitterness and unkindness that has overflowed our world. I ask all of these things in Jesus Christ, my Lord. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and Reverend Hager, thank you very much. You had double duty today, I understand. You're up on the Capitol. Down here. All right, thank you very much. Have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Wilder.
Here.
Commissioner Hedden. Here. Commissioner Turner.
Here.
Commissioner May.
Here.
Mayor Graham.
Here. We're all present, counted for. First, I want to welcome everyone here today. Glad you're here, and I hope we have a productive meeting. We have had the access to the minutes for the January the 23rd regular meeting and the February 13th work session, and so I would entertain a motion regarding the minutes.
Approved.
Okay, got a motion for approval of the minutes from Commissioner Hedden. Is there a second? Commissioner May, is there any discussion about the minutes? Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Wilder.
Yes.
Commissioner Hedden. Yes. Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Commissioner May.
Yes.
Mayor Graham.
Yes, so the minutes for January, January 23rd regular meeting and February 13th work session are approved. Next, we have ceremonial items. Mr. Goins.
We have none tonight.
None tonight, all right. Next on the agenda section, we have citizen comments. Any citizen can come address the commission. We like to hold comments to 5 minutes if we can. And so do we have any citizen that like to come forth and address the commission? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to ordinances. Mr. Moore.
Ordinance 4.1. This is an ordinance amending ordinance number 23, 2011 series, appropriating the revenue to be received by the City of Frankfort for the fiscal year 2011-2012. Summary. This ordinance amends the City of Frankfort budget for fiscal year 2011-2012 to include the roof repair for the municipal building. The total cost of the budget amendment ordinance is $130,000. The total contract price of the roof is $200,000 less the $70,000 energy grant.
Okay. Do I have a motion for approval of ordinance 4.1?
That was just the first reading.
First reading.
Oh, first reading, beg your pardon. Yeah, first reading. Thank you. Okay, without objection, we accept the first reading. All right. Next, we have orders.
Thank you, Mayor. Order 5.1 is an order authorizing 6 additional parking spaces in a loading zone on St. Clair Street. The purpose of this is to add these spaces in the loading zone as set forth in Attachment A, which was presented in an earlier meeting. And these would be added upon approval of the contingent upon approval of the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, which was the original source of the grant. And I'd like to ask Rebecca, Rebecca sent a letter to them asking for their permission to do this, and do you have they answered your letter?
Kind of. I asked after the last work session if they would please have an answer for us by this voting meeting so we could go ahead and make a decision. And I've asked for something in writing. They did send me an email today saying that the Federal Highways looked over the plan that we sent that had the 6 spaces in loading area, and that they're okay with that. I don't know if this is official enough, if we need to add, I mean, I was going to ask for something in writing, but I think that their answer is, yes, we can go forward.
So we vote on this? Okay, Commissioner May.
Move for adoption.
Approval, okay? Got a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Hadden, any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Wilder?
Yes.
Mr. Hadden?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mayor Graham?
Yes, the order 5.1 is adopted. Next, we have resolutions.
Yes, Mayor, we have a resolution 6.1, resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Department of Transportation of the United States for a grant under the Safety-LU grant program. There's a commitment, 50% local share commitment for operating costs under these projects. This is generally referred to as the grants that we use to run our city's public transit system.
Okay, do I have a motion regarding resolution 6.1?
Move for approval, Mayor.
Okay, it's Commissioner Turner, second.
I'll second.
Commissioner Wilder, any discussion? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Wilder?
Yes.
Mr. Hadden?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mayor Graham?
Yes, the resolution 6.1 is adopted.
Resolution 6.2 is a resolution authorizing the filing of a continuation of an application for certified local government grant for South Frankfort Survey Phase 4, and authorizing the mayor to execute all grant-related documents. As certified local government, the city of Frankfort is eligible for certified local government grant funds administered by the Kentucky Heritage Council, and they will update the National Register in the South Frankfort District.
Okay, I will entertain a motion regarding resolution 6.2.
So moved.
Commissioner May, approval?
I'll second.
Mr. Hadden, seconded. Any discussion? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Wilder?
Yes.
Mr. Hadden?
Yes.
Mr.
Uh,
Turner?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mayor Graham?
Yes, the resolution 6.2 is adopted. Okay, Mr. Goins?
Resolution number 6.3, resolution authorizing the support of an application for 2012 Our Town grant funds, naming the city as the primary partner and designating the mayor to sign a letter of support pertaining to this grant. Downtown Frankfort Incorporated would like to apply for this Our Town grant, and it's offered through the National Endowment of the Arts to fund a downtown master plan.
Okay, and have any motion regarding resolution 6.3?
Move to
Commissioner Wilder, then Commissioner Turner, second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Mr. Hadden?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Mayor Graham?
Yes, the resolution 6.3 is adopted. Mr. Goins?
Resolution 6.4 is a resolution supporting the Alliance is united in a belief that sustainability in schools must come from grassroots level efforts. Participating mayors champion the implementation of features in schools such as green roofs, solar panels, in new school construction, safe biking and walking routes to school, and development and use of green curriculum, and the greening of existing schools' operations and maintenance.
Okay, do I have any action regarding resolution 6.4? Commissioner Hadden?
Motion for approval.
Okay, motion for approval, do a second. Commissioner Turner? You get next. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner,
Yes.
Commissioner May,
Yes.
Mayor Graham.
Yes, so resolution 6.4 is adopted. Mr. Gordon.
Resolution 6.5 is a resolution in support of a Frankfort, Franklin County Comprehensive Public Recreation Facility. The state workers and citizens of Frankfort and Franklin County do not have access to a comprehensive sports and recreation complex at this time. Many Frankfort, Franklin County families find it necessary to travel to contiguous counties for access to multi-sport complex facilities to participate in youth sports. With a greater emphasis now on wellness initiatives for employees, a modern and convenient multi-sports facility would provide a means for employees and families to engage in a year-round fitness for sports activities.
Okay, do you have any motion regarding resolution 6.5? Commissioner Wilder. Approval. You got a second? Mr. Hayden? Okay, any discussion? Oh, yes, Commissioner Hayden.
Just noting that this can take place without impinging or hurting any local already set up businesses such as the YMCA and other things like that. I just want to make that clear to the public. And I think I've talked with Mr. Scholler, who's here as well, that they have no intentions of hurting any local businesses.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
If I could say, I think the community's been in agreement for a long time that we could use something along the lines of a recreation center or an indoor swimming pool, especially in light of the fact that our existing swimming pools are about to, they're past their expiration date. And one of the reasons we haven't taken this up is because there have been a group of private citizens and folks in state government who have been working on getting this done through a more comprehensive, broader community effort. And I just really want to applaud Brad and Tony in particular for working so hard to put this together, and we've got our fingers crossed.
Commissioner, Commissioner, you did second it, right? And then wanted to come?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we've got a
Yes.
motion and a second. All right, any other comments? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden,
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Turner,
Yes.
Commissioner May,
Yes.
Mayor Graham.
Yes, so resolution 6.5 is adopted. Next, we're on the consent calendar. Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 7.1 on the consent is to authorize a bid award to Shively Sporting Goods of Louisville for sports equipment for the 2012 season for Parks and Recreation. The annual bid process has been completed, and bids were received from 4 vendors. The bid award is in the amount of $33,350.72. Item .7.2, to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement between HCC Life Insurance Company and the City of Frankfort. This is for our life insurance to provide stop-loss insurance for the self-insured group health plan. Approximately $560,000 will be the financial impact depending on the number of employees covered. Item 7.3, to authorize the purchase of video security equipment at the wastewater treatment plant and to authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this project. This will include the equipment as well as the labor. The equipment amount is $14,526.28. The labor is $6,308.75 for a total of $20,835.03. Item 7.4, to authorize approval of amendment number 1 to an engineering contract with GRW Engineers Incorporated for the design of an equalization basin at the wastewater treatment plant, and authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this project. The total amount, this will bring the total amount of this contract to $550,250. Big number. Item 7.5, to authorize additional funding to a contract with H&A Resources Incorporated for the disposal of dewatered biosolids from the wastewater treatment plant and authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this contract. This account has $130,000 budgeted as of January 30. Nothing has been expensed from this account this year. 7.6, item 7.6 is to authorize award of an engineering contract to QK4 for concrete pipe video inspection and authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this project. The total contract is not to exceed $150,000. Item 7.7, to authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to releasing a utility easement. This is with the sewer department. Terms of this is to authorize mayor to sign the documents releasing a sewer easement on track B1 and track C of Bizac Boulevard in Franklin County. Upon completion, the owner will reestablish a side lot utility easement along the new property line after track B1 and track C are consolidated. Item 7.8, to authorize an amendment of a professional services contract with Burgess and Nyepel for the evaluation, engineering services, and creation of construction drawings for Phase 3 of the Indian Hills Sewer Rehabilitation Project, and authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this project. The total contract would rise to a level of $246,000. Item 7.9, to authorize approval of Amendment 1 to an engineering agreement with Camp Dresser and McKee Incorporated for the evaluation and preliminary engineering associated with the Crestwood I&I reduction project, and authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to the project. This makes this total contract $198,949. Item 7.10, to authorize award of a professional services agreement with Strand Associates for design services associated with rehabilitation of the employee shower and locker area at the wastewater treatment plant, and authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to this project. The shower and locker area are with the original building, and the plant is over 35 years old, and nothing has been done to upgrade the area since it was built. The total amount of the contract is $15,000. Item 7.11, to authorize disposal of a surplus property vehicle which is in the police department. It's a 1994 Ford pickup truck which has been used by the animal control officer. Declare this as surplus property. Item 7.12, to authorize award of professional services agreement with Strand Associates Incorporated for professional services associated with modeling support, and authorize the mayor to sign all documents related to the project. This agreement is to compensate Strand for their time in coordinating with various other consultants used in the sewer department. This hourly contract is not to exceed $25,000. Item 7.13, to authorize the mayor to sign an amendment to the agreement between HealthSmart, Wells Fargo TPA, and the city of Frankfort. This is necessary because of merger, and this will provide third-party administration for the self-insured group health plan, dental plan, vision plan, and workers' compensation program. The amendment is to reflect that HealthSmart acquired WFTPA effective January 1st, 2012. Item 7.14, to authorize approval of the agreement between the City of Frankfort and Frankfort Youth Football League, providing for the use of football field at Capitol View Park for a term of 1 year with the right to extend the term for 4 additional years. Item 7.15, to authorize approval of the agreement between the City of Frankfort and the Frankfort Soccer Alliance for the use of soccer fields at Capitol View Park. And this agreement is for a term of 1 year, but can be extended for 4 additional 1-year terms. Item 7.16, to authorize approval of an agreement between the City of Frankfort and the Young Men's Christian Association, YMCA, for the use of the soccer fields in Capitol View Park. This is also for a term of 1 year, but can be extended for 4 additional one-year terms. Item 7.17, personnel actions. There are 4 appointments. Ernest Howard appointed to Public Works Tech 1 and Sanitation. Jeremy Warren appointed to Public Works Tech 1 and Sanitation. James Morrow appointed to Public Works Tech 2, and that's different from what you might have in your, I think there was a typo. It says 1 on your record, but it is actually 2 in the Sanitation Department. Then there's appointment of Ben Gill, Public Works Tech 1 and Sanitation Department. There's a transfer. Robert Weber transfers from sanitation to the street department. There's also a transfer, which is a voluntary demotion. Brandon McLean is transferring from E911 telecommunicator 2 to Public Works Tech 2. And the promotion, Joanna Solowich from telecommunicator 1 to telecommunicator 2. Also, under personnel, permission to make 4 conditional job offers for the position of Patrol Officer 1 in order to continue in-depth background investigations of candidates. These positions are to replace officers that resigned or retired in recent months. These conditional job offers are contingent upon successful completion of physical, psychological, polygraph, and drug screen exams. Also, there's permission to make 2 conditional job offers for position of telecommunicator 1 in order to continue the in-depth background investigations of candidates. And this concludes the consent. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, we entertain a motion for the approval of the consent calendar.
Mayor,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder has submitted a vote modification form for consent item 7.13, which changes his vote from yea to nay on that particular item.
On which one?
7.13.
All right. On the consent calendar, do a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Okay. Commissioner Wilder, and got a second by Commissioner May. Any more discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner,
Yes.
Commissioner May,
Yes.
Mayor Graham.
Yes, so the consent calendar is approved. Next, we have board appointments, and there being 2. I'd like to recommend to the commission the reappointment of Tom Grissom to the Frankfort Housing Authority for a 4-year term ending on January the 29th, 2016. I also have one on the Board of Ethics. I recommend the appointment of Jackson R. Brewer to fill a vacancy on the Board of Ethics that for a term ending December 31st, 2013. You have letters of recommendation and resumes. Do you have a?
So moved. Move for
Commissioner-
approval of the mayor's appointments.
Commissioner May moved that we accept both nominations. Is there a second? Commissioner Hadden, is there any discussions? Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner,
Yes.
Commissioner May,
Yes.
Mayor Graham.
Yes, so the reappointment of Tom Grissom and the appointment of Jackson Brewer are approved. Next is old business, Mr. Goins.
Thank you, Mayor. First item, old business 9.1, for the commission to advertise for sale of the St. Clair parking garage by a sealed bid process. The Board of Commissioners wish to offer the St. Clair parking garage for sale through a sealed bid. A request for bids will be publicly advertised with the sealed bids to be opened on or about Thursday, March 15th, 2012. The city will reserve the right to reject all bids, and there is a required minimum bid of $25,000. There are certain conditions that will be advertised, and the purchase shall be subject to those conditions.
All right, do I have a motion for approval of 9.1? Commissioner May, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Wallace, second. Any comments?
Yes.
I would like to make one.
Just a technical comment, Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
The draft, I think, that was distributed did not have the size of the spaces, and that was to be determined by our Public Works Department. And Mr. Hackbart, if I understand it correctly, the size of the spaces are to be a minimum of 8.5 foot wide and 18 feet long. Is that correct?
Those dimensions are from the Sullivan Garage. We went out and measured the existing spaces from the Sullivan Garage, so that's where that dimension comes from.
Okay, that was what I wanted to just make a comment on. You know, we had some discussion about the requiring that person who made the bid to adhere to what we were saying on the size. I just want to make a comment that I do not think, I think that's wise. I think that if a person makes a bid to buy the parking garage, that we should not try to dictate the size of the parking. It's like that. I'm just wanting to make this statement. But I don't think I have any other support for that, so Commissioner Water.
I guess I'd just like to note, really for the public's information, that the city owns the parking garage on St. Clair, and it is deteriorating, it's falling apart, and we do have a responsibility to address the problem one way or the other in the interest of public safety. There's also an acknowledged parking problem downtown, and the opportunity to provide more spaces is desirable. There's no way the city's ever going to make money on the parking garage, even if we spend $2 million restoring it and then charge astronomical fees to park in there. We still wouldn't make money on it. So I think the best thing we can do is to take care of the public safety concern and hopefully provide or make additional parking spaces available to the public as cost effectively as possible. And we don't know if anybody's going to take us up on this offer or not, but if they do take us up on the offer, fix the garage on their own dime and make parking available as a result, should easily be the most cost-effective option for the city and cost the fewest tax dollars. So again, we've got our fingers crossed.
Okay, we've had a motion for approval and second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes, so 9.1.
And I have a piece of old business, Mayor.
Pardon me?
I have a piece of old business before we move on to new business.
Okay, okay, we're still on old business. That's right. Commissioner Turner.
It's come to my attention, and I think we've spoken about it several times before here in previous commission meetings, that, and for those in the public that aren't aware, we're in the process of reforming and reviewing our Chapter 40 ordinances, which has to deal with promotions in the fire department. And we had begun the process about a year ago or had wanted to begin the process about a year ago of reforming those, so that by the time it came around for new promotions, that we would be ready to go with the reformed ordinances, or with reformed ordinances. I'd like to request, I know that the testing for this upcoming year's promotions is to begin on March 1st. We've made some progress in getting those ordinances reviewed and reformed. I think that I would like to request among the rest of the board that we table those tests until the ordinance is passed or a decision is made on how we're moving forward with that ordinance. I think it'll be something that we can get done very quickly. I think it also puts an added incentive on getting this ordinance reviewed and reformed. And I think it's just fair to our firefighter employees to go under a single unified system for their testing for promotion. So I'd like to request among the rest of the boards that we hold off on testing on March 1st until we have the ordinances finished. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, do you have any comment to make on this?
I just wonder, would this have, I'd like to ask Mr. Donahue, does this have any impact on, or the Assistant Fire Chief Ed Sloan, does that have impact on our ability to keep our force up where it should be? Or?
Well, we can always make appointments or temporary appointments to fill such positions. My biggest concern is that in our case, the testing company that we use, it's usually a 3 to 4 month process to even get scheduled. So that's part of the reason that we're at here as opposed to giving it in January. So it's for example, I have outside evaluators coming in late March that we've already secured. It's kind of wasn't prepared for this part of it, but spoke to them just today. The representatives, they give the test this year, so they come from Indianapolis. They give the test. We don't administer the test. So there is a potential scheduling conflict that can get pretty tricky. Again, it's wherever you go, but you start looking at June, July for the months. We typically have we try to schedule at a point that has minimal impact, just like I've been trying to work around for evaluations. I said, black out the first week of April because that's the typical spring break for all the elementary schools and parents are gone. And so it's where it goes, but I do think it poses potential conflict if you go into the summer. That could have an adverse impact on some people that have kind of scheduled vacations around when will promotionals be. And I also think there's some possible drawback to rescheduling the testing company, finding evaluators in the summer. And that would be the input that I have. Randy, I'll leave anything that you may have from there.
Can we talk? I can ask Eddie a question and then.
And apply. We're not changing the numbers.
Okay, and what I asked Eddie was, and I don't know if this is acceptable to the commission where you want to go. That process is written test assessments, oral interviews, all that scored. The scores are put together to create an eligibility list. And since the department's already committed to getting the test company in here and getting the evaluators in here, would the commission maybe consider a position of, let's go forward with giving the written test since we've engaged the company, let's go forward with the assessments, but hold off on creating the eligibility list, which may change the weights until the new ordinance is in place. And that way, the eligibility list is created using your new rules, if you will, but since they've committed to the test company and to the assessors, to go ahead and get those things done. And they're going to score them. I don't think that will change the score is going to be a score on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 100 or whatever it is. And then we can put those scores together and weight them and come up with final scores, afterwards or whatever. I was just trying to find some middle ground there. So.
Yeah, my problem is with this is that I don't feel very comfortable going along with any of the process really until we have these ordinances set. And this would not have been a problem had it been addressed when we had asked for it to be addressed,
Right.
but or the other times that we asked for it to be addressed. Instead, it was put on the back burner, and now we hear are at times where we need to move with promotions, and suddenly we're being forced to move quickly here. Well, when we asked for the ordinances to be reformed, there wasn't very much quick movement at that point. So I'm hesitant to move forward on this promotional
It's
process.
certainly your all's prerogative to do what you want to do.
Any other comments? Now, Mr. Donahue, from what you said, and that the process could continue it would not affect, because by the March, you say we'll take this thing from March
March 1st.
1st? But the test that would be given, whether it's 3 months from now or whatever, would be the same?
I've not seen anything in the proposal that takes away the written test. Now, it may change the weightings.
Yeah.
I've not seen anything in the proposal that changes the assessment, but it may change the ratings. And same thing with the Civil Service Board interviews. That's what I was gonna say. I don't think putting it off, I don't think it's gonna get to what you're wanting to achieve. You can, if the goal is to get an eligibility list as soon as possible, but based on the new rules, you can either go on with the process and then apply the new rules when it comes time to create the list, or you can stop the whole process and then you gotta start all over again from scratch. But, I mean, we can do whatever the
No, three
majority of
votes,
the board deems
three votes to
appropriate.
get anything done.
But I don't think that the proposals that I've seen, and I'm still working on them, I just got my final draft, I think it's final, from the fire department, maybe late last week, and I'm trying to put it into appropriate format so that I can meet with the city attorney and talk through some of those changes. I've not seen anything in the proposal that changes those steps of the process. It's at the end where the weightings, maybe they count 20% instead of 15% or something along that matter, but you wouldn't have to wait and do those things after, although, you know,
That seems, now from my experience, that seems reasonable to me. If it would not impede any of the employees from trying to get the promotion or what have you, from taking the test. I mean, the score they're going to get is going to be the score they're going to get.
well, the final
But the weighting-
score may change.
I understand.
But their scoring on the written test
Yeah,
is
that's what I'm
gonna
saying.
change. Whether they take that test on March
Yeah.
1st or they take that test on June 1st, I don't think it's gonna,
From last week's crew meetings, the components of what makes up the promotional process, I don't think the components will, so what Randy's saying, I think is accurate, that the components will not change. It's just the weight that you apply to them when you choose to apply to them. Now, understand that Chief Postage and I spoke on Friday. He's ill today, but we spoke on Friday, you know, and we're in agreement that perhaps the best thing to do is if, first of all, again, your decision, but even if you decide to just, for the promotional process, apply last year's standards and go with that and continue with the process. But I do not think the components from crew meetings, that there is a push to change the components that make up the test. How we weight them may change. So,
Commissioner Turner.
Well, and that's, I mean, from back last February when, I'm essentially, in my opinion, making the same argument that I made back in February, or last February, that when a firefighter goes to take the promotional test or any part of the process, they need to be fully aware of how that process is structured, including the weights of the test. I think that's just being fair to our employees and moving forward so that they know, okay, this is worth X amount, this is worth X amount. And so to me, it's more of just being fair here. It's sort of like when I was teaching, I would always let my students, before I gave them the test, now they were going to get whatever they were going to get on the test, or certain sections of that test, but I always let them know how much those sections were weighted, because I think that matters. I think that's being fair to the employee or to the student or whomever. And so that's where I'm coming from on this, and I think it's just by just holding off for, I mean, we can get this done in the next month or so, I think. Just holding off a little bit on this will allow us to all have a fair playing field in moving forward with promotions. That's my standpoint. I certainly would like to hear from the rest of the commission on their thoughts on it.
So we have a motion on the floor to post. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, do we have any more discussion? Commissioner Wilder.
What motion?
I got it.
I don't think there actually was a motion. was
No,
there?
there was
No,
no
I
motion.
just threw it out for discussion.
Oh, I
can
thought
make a
you
motion.
made a motion.
I can make a motion if you'd like.
Well, if that's what you want to, are you trying to make a motion?
Do we need a motion to do that, or?
Yeah, would we not?
You would need, if you're going to move to delay it, I think it makes sense to go ahead and move to delay it if you are going to delay it. Oh, and then you would also ask, I assume, for some type of expedited process to get it before the commission
Sure.
as soon as possible.
I would like to move that we delay fire promotion exams until Chapter 40 is finished, and at that point expedite this process in order to fulfill promotions as needed.
Okay, okay, we had the motion, and Commissioner Hidden, you second that?
Second.
Oh, any more discussion? Commissioner May?
Okay.
Shoot.
The suggested changes that we had before us, which weren't, they're just suggested. It says, upon approval of the ordinance, the written examination will be valued at 45%, the assessment center at 35%, oral interview at 10%, and longevity at 10%. And I just want to make sure I understand what's being proposed. If that were to change, based on what I heard from Chief Sloan and Mr. Donahue, was it wouldn't, in their opinion, it wouldn't matter when an applicant took a test, because the answers are going to, it's not going to change the questions on the test, correct? So they're going to take the same test, but if someone had, is there a reason to think that delaying it could cause other civil service employees to bring any kind of action against us, since if we advertised it as March the 1st and people have studied based on their study habits, may have had a chance to get prepped up? I'm just asking so we'll know, so we don't open ourselves up for other folks coming back and saying, we thought we were going to take the test on whenever.
If I may, certainly anyone could make a complaint, but I don't think there would be any real basis for that complaint as long as they have the opportunity to take the test when it is offered.
I guess the next question, if I could, Mayor. The testing company, according to Chief Sloan, was scheduled for March. And is it difficult? You said it might be difficult to get them to reschedule?
We originally were shooting for January, seeing that this wasn't moving along as quick as we liked. I said, when will your next proposal date be? And they indicated to me that March would be the better month, and then it would start getting, they go through a cycle like anyone else, but last year, it was 2 or 3 months when I finally had a date that I wanted, that we had to work through getting the next date. And that was the test that we gave, I guess, October of 10.
Is that the written test or the
No,
assessment?
that's the assessment center, but the same testing company does the test. It's called kind of inclusive.
That's all I had. I just was curious.
Some comments and maybe some questions. I think this is a pickle. I think we were pretty clear a year ago when we first talked about making some changes to Chapter 40 that we wanted to get this done in advance of the next promotional process. And I'm just going off of memory now, but I mean, we were told at the time that it would take a few months, and then a few months turned into November, it turned into January, and here we are at February. So I mean, ideally, we could go back in time and this would have been done on the schedule we originally requested. That obviously can't happen. I hear what you guys are saying about the test isn't going to change either way, and I think that's a fair point. But we are talking about changing the way we score the test, and it seems that folks that have some grounds to rumble if we start a process and then essentially change the rules midstream. That's a problem. Is there any fiscal impact of delaying this process? I mean, does the testing company, did we not get our refund back or something like that?
I don't think there's we've certainly not paid a deposit, so to say, or upfront money. I really would have to go back and look. I wasn't prepared to answer that question. I'd have to look a little more to give you an accurate answer. I'd be afraid to say otherwise. My suspicion is probably not. If it is, it's, we've not given them upfront money, but that's only a suspicion.
And I don't know, there's, some of those tests, you have 30 days to use them, but you can return them, I think, or they get credit for unused tests, or?
On this particular test, I mean, it's tailored for our fire department. We supplied them with a reading list, we supplied them with our SOPs, our incident management system of the reading list that had been out approximately 6 months. So it is tailored to us. It's not going to be resold to someone else. It's no value to anyone else.
Chapter 40 obviously applies to public safety across the board, police as well as fire. Is there a similar timeline we need to be aware of in the police department?
No, sir. At this time, we have no upcoming openings for supervisory positions. So, the time crunch is not on us for this.
Thank you. I guess, even though on one hand it seems that, we said we wanted to get this done before the next promotional process. On one hand, I think it makes sense for us to get this done and then begin the next promotional process, because that's what we've been talking about for about a year. I'm having a hard time getting my head around whether or not delaying or not delaying would have an adverse effect on just the rank and file who are hoping to be promoted, or who are, I don't really have a sense of how that's going to be impacted. I think we've got rank and file in the room. Would there be any objection to just getting a lower level employee's perspective?
I think that's fine, as long as you understand that, how many people signed up for the promotional process?
Approximately 35.
About 35 people signed up for the promotional list, and you may get 4 opinions here tonight if these 4 did sign up for promotion, and I don't really know if they did, but I understand that, I hope you'd understand that might not necessarily represent
I understand.
the
I just want to
majority
hear.
of the people that signed up and have been studying for 6 months or 2 months or ever how long they have.
How many of those positions are open?
Question. Go ahead. You want to see the question?
How many of those positions are open for promoted right now?
Currently, there are no open positions. I would say that I anticipate between now and August 1, probably, we've got winter, well, that one will come off this list, but probably 2 to 3 retirements in the summer that could be an impact. But
Mr. May?
that would not be an impact.
To try.
Wait, Commissioner Head wasn't finished.
Oh, go ahead.
It's,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Commissioner Head.
Sorry.
Well, I don't feel so good with the situation. At first, we were told April, we were told August you would have this done, and then November. Then we got told the chief was too busy, he had other things he needed to do, and then 2 weeks later it shows up. I just feel like this is trying to get pushed through without anyone getting any, there's no consequence. Here we are, you told us this a year ago, you would work on this, and it's at the end of the line, and now you're asking for it. And there's no one to get promoted till August. Why can't we just wait?
No, ma'am. I'm not saying, I can only say that that's, not trying to be short, that's your decision to make. I will leave that, that's your decision. I have no good answer for what you're asking me.
Just seems like a little procrastination to me, and we've asked several times, we've been very patient with the process. Now, if there's no one to be promoted till August 1st, I have no problem with saying yes to what Commissioner Turner's asked.
Commissioner May.
I think it's one of these, it's a tough decision to try to make on the night we're going to be asked to vote on something with March 1st, or whenever, was it March the 1st?
Thursday, yes, Thursday.
Test, and I know we've got 4 or 5 folks from the fire department here, but there's 80-something total in the fire department that other members may have wanted to come in and express views on it. So I don't really know that it's always in our best interest to make a decision the night of a meeting. We can always come back and say, let's try to get more information, try to have a, I'm not really one for always doing special meetings, but maybe we need, if we're not sure, I would hate to make a decision tonight and then have the rest of the department come back and say, well, you know, we've been studying for how long, I'm not saying they would, but based on trying to prep themselves for a test that's going to be on March the 1st, and to have to delay that, I don't know if anybody else would want to come in and say that's not fair or that's fine. I don't know if you all would want to try to do another meeting this, whatever the minimum time we would have to announce for a special meeting, if that's even a possibility. I don't feel real comfortable making a decision like this tonight because I don't have any background information on it other than what we've heard from our department heads and from commissioners. I'm not saying it's not right, I just don't know. I'm not real comfortable with it, so I don't really know.
Well, I granted, I know that there are people probably who are preparing for the test and getting ready for the assessment. I can only speak to my personal experience in that category. While I've never tested in the fire department or for civil service exams, I can say that when I have been tested, I always appreciated showing up to the professor or teacher's door and seeing that the test had been delayed for another week or another month or something like that. It gave me extra time to study so that I could get a better score. So, I mean, I don't know how some of the people who are signed up for the promotional process right now would take this news, which is why I'm trying to be very clear in saying that my whole intention in this is just to make sure that the entire process is fair. That's what I said back in February. That's what I'm saying this February. And that's the only reason why I brought this up for consideration.
And, Commissioner Welker.
I think we have been clear for a year that we don't want the process to go forward until the changes have been made to Chapter 40. I agree that ideally, I think that the fire chief would have dealt with this last year and we'd be in fine shape. I agree with that, but if delaying this is going to have an adverse effect on employees, it's kind of unfair to, on one hand, it's kind of unfair to hit them with something just because the chief didn't get his job done in time. On the other hand, not doing something this week is akin to making a decision. I mean, if something happens on March 1st, something's going to happen on March 1st, then we can't choose to give the thing more time, per se. I could, if we want to call a special meeting on Wednesday, we can't call one tomorrow, not within 24 hours.
If I could, the people are coming from Indianapolis to give that test, so we probably need to let them know
Sure.
tomorrow if they're going to cancel their travel plans. I think the two options here, you know, it sounds like, are to stop and start all over again, or let's go forth and use the current process this time and not rush the ordinance change and have it in place for the next round of promotions.
And
Well, it's too late to rush the ordinance change. The
Well,
ordinance has been on the table for a year. We can do it tomorrow and it wouldn't be rushed.
I assume there's still gonna be some discussion, because there are employees that
Right.
vehemently agree, and there are employees that vehemently disagree, as is typical when you change things.
Sure.
And you may hear from both sides. And so I don't think that this is gonna be the thing that's gonna get a first reading and nobody's gonna comment, and it's gonna get a second reading and nobody's gonna comment, although it may be. So, when I refer to rushing the process, I think that there's discussion still
There are.
to be had. And that's why maybe the alternative is to just say we're gonna go forth, and the current rules, which everybody knows and everybody's familiar with, they're in place for this entire process. And then my concern, just listening to this, is if summer's a bad time to get either for our employees to take the test, because a lot of them take vacations, and you can only bring the test company in once unless you're gonna bring them in twice and double your cost. And if it's bad for the assessment company to come during the summer because of their schedule, then if we delay it, we're probably delaying it until fall. And it is, you give the written test, they come back 2 or 3 weeks later, I guess, and do the assessment, if you can schedule them that close. And then, once we know how many people need to be interviewed, we schedule the Civil Service Board. And I can't really schedule them till I know if we need 1 day or 2 days to get a quorum, and that usually takes 2 or 3 weeks. Have the interviews, they score the candidates, give me the scores, that takes a few days. It's just a long, drawn-out process.
I've been very clear from the get-go. I do not want to do a promotional process under the old system. I've said it month after month after month, and I will not support it here.
But if you proceed as scheduled, then when we get this chapter 40 fixed up, the only thing that's going to be changing, you'll have the information there from the test, but it's to how you weight those things. Correct, is what I understand.
Yes, sir.
It won't change. It's just, all you're going to do is change the weighting of the things. Well, to me, that's reasonable to go on with it. That's where, if we can move this thing along, if you like. We've got a motion and a second to make the change. And Commissioner May, you want to make another comment?
No, I was gonna say, I didn't know if any of the folks in the firefighters wanted to say anything, if they wanted to weigh in, if that's appropriate now. I don't know if we have a motion on the table, if that's actually appropriate.
We have, I would prefer to move on with the motion. Unless I'm overruled.
I would like to hear from as many people as possible. I know that the folks here can't speak for the department, but they can speak for themselves.
Then you make a motion that I'm going to go overruled on this, I know. You wanting to hear?
Well, I didn't know Commissioner Head had asked if someone did not, so I didn't know if they were getting ready to come up and say something. I don't even know if it's actually appropriate since we have a motion on the table.
Okay.
We've heard it before. Okay.
Pardon me? What'd you say, Commissioner Turner?
Oh, I said I'm happy to hear them if they'd like to come up and speak. But if it's inappropriate because of the rules of the meeting, then obviously I can vote on it. But I'd like to hear them as well. So.
Okay, you've got you and Commissioner May. Commissioner Head wants the same thing. Yes, and Commissioner Glover. So anybody from the fire department will come up and say something.
Yeah, thank you. First off, I don't envy being in y'all's seats whatsoever. I'm Chuck Crittenden.
Everyone that comes up, please identify yourself first and then speak.
Chuck Crittenden. I work for Frankfort Fire. I'm also the president of Local 1017, so I do speak for the body of at least 40 members of the fire department. That being said, either way you go is going to negatively impact brothers I have either way. If you vote to not go ahead, there's going to be members that are not going to get to test at all. If you go with the new ordinances, when they are approved, again, there's going to be members that don't get to test at all. We have not had a meeting considering this. We had no idea that we weren't going forward. We were under the assumption that we were going on the old way. So there's still many things that need to be discussed. Chief and Chief Posse and Sloan were extremely receptive in the meetings we had. But that being said, they had a year. We had 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, between 10 or 15 men divided between each shift. That's a lot of information to take 20, 30, 40 changes and to hash out in 2 hours. So I still think there's a long way to go and a lot of proposed changes. If you take the sergeant just in particular, as it stands now, after you've been here as probationary firefighter for 1 year, then next year in your job and rank as a firefighter, you can test for sergeant. Then you move on up. The proposed change is 4 years total. And the possibility, some of us has discussed it being as many as 5 years before you can test as sergeant. So as it stands now, we have multiple brothers in the union that won't be able to test at all under the new ordinance if it's passed, but that are eligible to test now. We have one firefighter I know that put in to test, thinking that we were going to test under the new, and he said, "You are not eligible to test because we're going to a new system." So there's no common ground. So we just need you guys to figure out which way we're going to move forward. And I appreciate you letting us talk.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, then we have a motion on the floor. For the postponement in second. So call.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I still need a little more information. I'm sorry.
All right, what kind of information you need?
A clearer understanding. Maybe that was the only example that Mr. Crittenden gave. But it sounds like this decision will have a substantive impact on who can and can't test. Either way, but I guess I'd like a clearer understanding of what that difference is, of who is ineligible each way.
If you were to repeat your question, make sure that I have just exactly what you asked. I have just a bit of
Sure.
here.
I'm just looking for a clearer understanding of who would be franchised to test, who would be eligible to test under the new system as opposed to the old system, or under the proposed changes as opposed to the current.
I would admit that that's probably the most unclear portion of that may change something there, and that's as I may have been overlooked, as I said earlier. Chief Posse spoke to me on Friday. He said, so probably the cleanest way to do this is to make clear that we use the old standard throughout this process, adopt the new when it comes in, effective on its passage. Yes, if you apply different standards, and that was as broad as it was along on opinions as to how to break down who could and could not test at certain points along the way due to their experience. I don't think I'm answering your question fully, but that would be the one unknown. I think that could change the outcome.
So it's not that the eligibility pool necessarily widens or shrinks, it just
It could, yes, sir, it could shrink a bit. It could shrink just a bit, or it could broaden a bit by the 1 year. That part of it is probably I really did not bring the list with me to look over it as we went. I didn't know the question was going to come up.
Talk about the specifics. The specific changes, I think, at least under the proposal, was to test for fire sergeant under the old, you have to have, currently now, you have to have 1 year?
2 years.
2 years, and they're changing that under the new one to
4 years.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
To be eligible to test for lieutenant, captain, or battalion chief under the old, you had to have
2 years also.
2 years in the next lowest rank. And the proposal is to change that to
1.
1 year in the next lowest rank. So for sergeant, the proposal narrows the applicant pool. They felt it was important that people have more time with Frankfort Fire Department than 1 year, that they probably weren't ready to move up to sergeant until they had more time. So you set a higher standard, you shrink the pool for sergeant. Changing the requirement in the next lower grade for lieutenant, captain, and battalion chief from 2 years to 1 lowers the bar and could increase the size of the applicant pool. Is that what you're looking for,
That's
Commissioner?
that's exactly what I'm.
Okay, I thought
great.
that's what you were asking, and I wasn't 100%.
Thank you. Well, then I think those changes are actually pretty reasonable. I realize that they enfranchise some people and disenfranchise others, and that's just the way all legislation works, it seems. But if we're going under the assumption, which we are, I think, that the new changes will be, that the changes to Chapter 40 are needed and will be good for the system, then I suppose I would favor the process reflecting those changes instead of the norm. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Ready to call the roll?
Could I ask for the motion to be restated so we can hear the motion?
Clarity.
It's like,
To defer the promotional system until till the ordinance, chapter 40 is revised, and then expedite the process.
That's exactly right.
Is that right? That's it. Okay. Call the roll.
Mr. Wilder?
Yes.
Mr. Hadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Mr. May?
well, I'm sort of for it, but I'm also, since we're so unclear and not being able to have all answers, I'm going to vote no tonight. Doesn't mean I'm not supportive of Chapter 40. I just have reservations about voting on an ordinance change, or not an ordinance change, but a test change without having input from more people. Not that that wasn't good input.
Mayor Graham?
From
No, so it passes. 3 passes. Okay, any more old business? Okay, now we enter new business. Mr. Goins.
New business, item 10.1, to authorize the purchase of a 27 cubic yard automated high compaction garbage packer from J. Edinger and Son. There were 8 bids for the equipment, and the low bid was accepted at $217,323.
Okay, do I have a motion regarding 10.1? Commissioner Wilder, motion of approval, or do I have a second? Mr. Turner. All right, any discussion questions? I can call
Just to
roll.
confirm, this is
Yes.
this is coming in a little over $80,000 cheaper than expected. Is it safe to assume that that $80,000 will go unspent? This is the question is, this is a truck that we budgeted $300 for. We're getting it for closer to $220. Does that mean we're saving that 80, or is that 80 gonna get
Mr. Dawson or
find
Mr.
its way into another
Hackbarth?
account?
I think, if I remember, Mr. Dawson, please.
Hey, Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Dawson. Sidebar.
They're working on it.
He said yeah.
Got a plan. The budget amendment was for a code enforcement officer, for his salary plus the garbage truck. So we were only spending what's the low bid on the bid opening of the vehicle with this bid award. Any other money we would spend would have to be brought to you all.
Okay.
Thank you. Are you ready to call? Well, ready? Okay.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner May?
I'm going to vote no for consistency since I voted against the original amendment. I support the department. Please understand that. I don't want anybody to think I don't support you guys.
Mayor Graham?
Yes, so 10.1 is approved. All right, now, Mr. Goins?
Item 10.2 is discussion about the city's appointment to the Humane Society Board. Just for review, the Humane Society has rewritten their bylaws, and their bylaws are written in such a way now that the representative from the city and the county would also be a voting member of the Humane Society Board. And Mr. Marcus has sent us a communication recommending a lady by the name of Susan Jeffers, recommending her for appointment.
This is for discussion.
Mayor, I'm happy to nominate Mrs. Jeffers for city's representative on the Humane Society Board.
Okay, do I have a second for that? Okay, let's put, if there's no second right now, let's want to have more discussion on that. Commissioner Hayden and then Commissioner Wilder.
My only hesitancy comes with the member being a voting member versus a non-voting. Seeing that the city does give money to the Humane Society, I would like for them to maintain and be a non-voting member, whoever we appoint.
Commissioner Wilder.
So the question over whether or not a voting member is appropriate has been in place since the ex officio position was first established. We do give money to other agencies that we appoint the boards of. KCDC or SECITA, I guess, would be the easiest example.
We don't have a voting. We don't vote on KCDC.
Well, but you appoint half the members to KCDC,
yes.
and they do vote as members of that board.
Yes, they do. Yes.
So I think there is ample precedent for that. I'm a little nonplussed that a city employee isn't welcome there. Just as a little background, this all came up in the first place when the Humane Society kind of imploded after the copper incident, when a homeowner's dog was mistaken for a coyote and released into the wild, and that was the kind of tipping point in terms of quite a lot of drama with the Humane Society and a real changeover of the board. Since the Humane Society has seen another upheaval and new board, but in terms of the logic of having an ex officio member or any member appointed by the city in the first place and by the county, the logic is that we give them about $50,000 a year, and as such, they are a quasi-governmental agency, and it kind of seemed at the time like we have a responsibility to have some kind of oversight over the agency that we're giving all this money to. That doesn't necessarily mean, oversight doesn't mean that we tell them what to do, but it's important that we have somebody who's actually on board and who's actually monitoring what's going on, who's responsible for reporting back to the city and responsible for sharing that information with the city. And in terms of people who we can tell what to do, city employees are responsible to the city. A city employee on the board who is tasked with sharing information about the Humane Society with the city and keeping the city up to speed on their processes and what they're going through and what their needs and concerns are, etc. That's a kind of firm conduit of information. Appointing somebody who isn't responsible for reporting back to the city, I'm not too thrilled about that. But that's what the Humane Society has in their bylaws, and the only thing we can do about that would be to, well, there's nothing we can do about that. And we can always say we're going to withhold our $50,000. That would be an empty threat that I wouldn't want to make, even if we could make it. I think that things do seem to have turned around there, and a cautiously optimistic side of me would like to think that maybe we need less oversight right now because things seem to be going pretty well, but that's always a risky proposition, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So I don't really know where I'm going with this, except to say that I think it is important that anybody we appoint be somebody who we can expect to keep us well informed about what's going on at the Humane Society. And in that sense, I think the appointment probably should actually come from us.
Well, and if I may, Commissioner, add in there, if we could do, I'm sorry, Commissioner, were you?
I was just waving to the mayor like I would.
I would like to, once we appoint this person, to set a request that after, 3 months or 4 months, every 3 or 4 or 6 months, they come back and give us a little briefing on what's going on with the Humane Society so that we can be informed. If not, a time period agreed on by the commission, of course, but I'm just throwing those numbers out there hypothetically. But I do feel like that we should demand a little more responsibility in terms of keeping us informed and abreast of what's going on at the Humane Society.
Any other comment? Commissioner May?
Mayor, thank you. I've always, on the record, supported various agencies that we provide funding to, but I've always also been against having city representatives on their boards for a number of reasons. I know, well, for example, we don't have representatives on all the agencies that we give subsidies to. CCDA, or KCDC, Development Authority, was created jointly by the city and county. And then there was also with the, trying to think of the other one. Well, the Housing Authority, we have, the mayor gets to serve as ex officio member on that, but not as a non-voting member. But I just see problems with city boards, or city representation on private boards. That's just my thought. That's a short answer.
I concur with it. That's my feeling likewise. I don't feel that the city representative should be a voting member.
But I do support the Humane Society.
Pardon me?
And I said I do support the Humane Society and the other agencies.
Yes.
Just not with board members.
So just get back now to
Or could I ask the solicitor a question?
Yes.
Just in the past, and maybe I don't think this changed, but I guess this first came up years ago. We were talking about the downtown Frankfort, the DFI board, and there was some discussion then about a city elected official being on it, and we knew that couldn't be because of the incompatible office statute. But I know we addressed some issues because of DFI receiving funding from the city and having a city representative on the board. That's kind of when we started. So in that same line of thinking, in terms of city liability, everybody wants to always sue government if something goes wrong. And if we could just ask the solicitor for some thoughts or comments, if you had any, had the time to think about it.
A couple of things. One is in terms of having a city appointee that's a voting member, there can be a conflict between whether that individual is voting for what's best for the Humane Society or what's best for the city. Mm-hmm. And generally, those are going to be consistent. I mean, the city's goals are going to be consistent with the Humane Society's goals, but it may not be the case all the time. The second thing is with respect to potential liability on the part of the city. Of course, whenever anyone files a lawsuit, they always want to name as many deep pockets as defendants as possible. And of course, if you have a city employee that's on there that's taking part in decision-making for the Humane Society, then that does give whoever's suing the Humane Society one additional hook into naming the city as a defendant. I'm not saying that would result in a successful judgment against the city, but that is one additional reason to name the city. And as far as the Humane Society's status as a private or governmental entity, for purposes of open records review, they are subject to the open records review laws that apply to governmental entities, but in terms of their operations, they are a private entity. So for purposes of open records review, I think you could call them a quasi-governmental agency because they receive more than 50% of their funding from governmental entities. but for purposes of their operations, they are not quasi-governmental entities. They are private entities and subject to the rules that all private entities are subject to, so.
Are you done, Commissioner? I just want to add one thing real quick and clarify something. It was not this commission that either requested or forced the Humane Society to change their bylaws to allow our representative to be a voting member. That was an internal reform at the Humane Society that they decided to do. We're just asked here to appoint somebody to fill the spot that is open for a city representative. We've had a city representative on the board before the changes were made who was an employee here. So I mean, I'm kind of shocked at, I'm a little shocked at sort of the unwillingness to move forward in an appointment on this. But
Can I clarify something real quick? Yeah. I don't think anybody's suggesting that we appoint a city employee as a voting member. The Humane Society's own bylaws prohibit that.
Right.
So that's not even a possibility. And I apologize if I took the conversation into the weeds in that regard. Maybe a simpler way to clarify the point I was trying to make is that I don't care whether or not the city has a vote on the board. I think the important thing is just that we have somebody at the meetings who's responsible for reporting back to us. That's the only thing that matters. That person doesn't need to be a city employee. That person doesn't need to vote. But in terms of making this appointment, that's the only criteria I have, is that the person do be responsible. There would be some responsibility for reporting back to the commission, just so we have that basic oversight over the agency that we're giving money to. And there is one slight wrinkle in the Humane Society that differs them from other nonprofits that receive our funding, and that's that they do perform a service that we would otherwise be obligated to provide ourselves. So we have an obligation to handle animal control, and we essentially contract with them for that purpose. So they're not just a nonprofit that we're giving money to out of the kindness of our hearts. I mean, they actually are performing a civic duty that's ultimately our responsibility to perform. So I think it is particularly appropriate for us to have not control over them, but just oversight and an understanding of what they need.
Mr. May.
I think what I want to clarify, just the Humane Society is being contracted to provide services for the city. It's not like we're giving a donation to the Humane Society, just for clarification purposes. I know the commission knows. We're contracting for services from the Humane Society as we would any other vendor that deals with city government. It's very clear that it's a contract for services and it's not a contribution or donation, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't have a problem with the city saying we assign a staff member or ask a staff member to go to Humane Society board meetings, but they wouldn't be a member of the board. Whereas our previous staff person that was going was an ex officio member of the board. But it would just be like what we did with the downtown Frankfort board. We just assigned a staff person from Parks and Recreation Department to go to their meetings, and that was all. And it was just a city assignment. I mean, I could be fine with that if everyone else agrees.
I think that presents a really clear compromise.
Yes. It's my understanding that the Humane Society and the bylaws have said that the city representative will be a voting member. Is that correct?
Yes, we were notified that they had already changed their bylaws,
So,
both for the city and the county.
So, just what I'm beginning to feel here is that I have no objection to go ahead and nominating someone to serve. My concern is, I think it's been expressed here, I don't think we should be a voting member, personally. We should have someone to actually be voting, and that's how I feel. I think that, as you said, have someone there, report to us, but not be an actual voting member. This is, as you mentioned, Commissioner May, as the mayor, I sit on the Housing Authority Board, and I attend most of the meetings, but I don't vote. It's just understanding of what's going on, things of this nature. I feel that they should have their board without the city representation, or even, say, the county likewise, if it's the thing, that they would not be a voting member, but they'd be there. That's how I feel. Commissioner?
Okay, I think there is a clear enough compromise here. The decision to have a city-appointed voting member isn't, well, I guess we could make that decision. But really, that's a decision that's been made and a request that's been made by the Humane Society and changes they made to their own bylaws. I don't have any problem respecting and meeting that decision. It seems to me that we could even go ahead and appoint, who I think, to all appearances is a good appointment, but go ahead and appoint the name in front of us. Ask for just a quarterly written report. And if that doesn't happen, then we can always assign a staff member to actually attend Humane Society meetings and report back to us, but not actually be a member of the board or vote or anything like that. Is that fair?
That's fine with me.
I guess my question, I'm not comfortable actually appointing somebody to their board. My suggestion was we just say a duty assignment or work assignment is for a city staff person, if the commission wants to do that, would go to their board meetings and could come back and report to us. Now, I don't know if that's acceptable to everyone else. I was just trying to find something else that might get the information that some of our board members here want from the Humane Society.
Now, I will not support selecting someone if they're going to be a voting member. Then I will not support that. I do not mind going ahead with nominating someone to represent the city there in oversight, but would not be a voting member. Now, that's where I stand.
I'm with you.
I don't think there's particular urgency.
No, I do not either. But if they have already fixed their bylaws, it says it's going to be a voting member. If we send someone there, you see they're going to be a voting member if we send them, unless they change their bylaws. Say, would that be right?
The only way around it that I see would be if the commission directed the representative to abstain from voting. They attend, but abstain on every vote. That's sort of a roundabout. It's not directly addressing the problem, but that's the only way I can see.
Well,
I don't think that does.
I think we could also just respectfully ask them to amend their bylaws to ex officio status and just wait to fill the seat until then. I don't, if we're asking not to vote, I can't imagine they would object to that.
One thing there though, see, we're speaking from the city, and they're also, the county's involved in this.
Sure.
The county may feel differently than we do. They may say, we want a voting member.
I think they've already appointed somebody, haven't they? I think the county's already appointed somebody, if I'm not mistaken, to fill that voting member spot.
Well, I definitely still don't sense heavy urgency. It seems that this even could wait a month.
That's fine with me.
Let's do that.
So in that month, could we gauge interest on the Humane Society and I suppose on the county's part in relegating these or at least our position back to ex officio?
I think that's reasonable because I don't think they asked for input from the commission before they made these changes.
Right.
So
I'm sure they thought these changes were good, but and they had no ill will, but they probably didn't understand the complexity of it that they were causing for the commission.
And likewise, just as not anything maybe to be negative, but for a board to recommend to us who we put on, It's not always
Yeah.
the best thing either, too. But I mean, we're doing it all in good faith. I mean, we all love each other, and we want everybody to
Love animals too.
I don't think any of the staff of the Humane Society is acting in good faith.
That's right, absolutely. Very good.
For my part, I think we're actually really doing a pretty good job.
I think they're doing a great job. I'm tickled to death.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just put this off for a while. Yeah. Commissioner May?
When I get ready to adjourn, can I make the motion to adjourn because I want to do it in honor of someone whenever we're ready? I don't want to do it until you're all ready. I still want.
Okay. Are we down to the last item?
Excuse me, if I may just sum this up. It's my understanding you want me to approach the chairman of the Humane Society to ask if they would consider making this ex officio status. Is that my understanding?
Pretty much it.
Or you simply want to wait longer to think about it?
Maybe talk about it, I'm sorry, if I could, Mayor, just maybe talk about it, the pros and cons of even an ex officio member versus a staff person just to go to the meetings, which they're open anyway, but there may be some reasons why if we don't have an ex officio member, may not be able to go into closed session if there's anything like that they would need to hear for property or personnel. I don't, just my thoughts, and I might be in the minority, and that's okay. This is not a burning issue that I feel strongly.
As a practical matter, I think, and correct me, some of you all are personally involved more than I, but as a practical matter, I think most of their meetings are on Saturdays now, and, you know, some of the meetings are lengthy, and I'm not sure how easy it would be for us to, we would either have to pay overtime or flex out time, or it'd be sort of awkward. Am I on the wrong wavelength, or would you agree with that, Randy? You don't have to agree with me now.
And I did think, I'm sorry, and I did think about that, and that was a concern of even if we should even have that be an option. The DFI board met during the day, so it wasn't a problem there, but after hours, I could see that it could be an issue with compensation because of the requirement to pay or provide comp time.
Well,
I just wanted to add, for the record, and this is on the record back in the summertime, and I'll put it on the record this time, that I do support having a voting member on the Humane Society Board as a form of oversight. I don't feel like you have very much power or authority to provide oversight if you don't have a vote. I made that argument back in the summer when we addressed Humane Society issues, but I won't object if the commission wishes to move forward and pursue an ex officio position, but I just wanted to let that out there for the record for the public to know.
Okay. Commissioner Wilder?
I would favor ex officio over voting, but I would favor either over sending a non-board member, just because a board member, whether or not they vote, is going to have access to all the information that average Joe on the street or average city employee wouldn't necessarily have. So I think it is important that we have an actual member of the board. It seems that the ideal would be for us to have a member of the board, not a city employee, but just an active, engaged board member like any of them, who we can count on to just give us a quarterly report. And then we wouldn't have to send any staff at all.
Right.
So I'd like for us to at least give that a shot, because that's free. I think.
Discuss this a little later. That sounds good to me. I think you're making good points. Okay. All right. Are we down now to the last item on the agenda? And Mr. Commissioner May?
I just wanted to say that since we lost a real leader of our community in Mayor Frank Sauer this past week, and he was mayor of Frankfort from 1968 to 72. I grew up with him in our neighborhood and have been neighbors since I was a kid, and just have lots of fond memories of him when I was younger, and he's done so much for our community that I think that when we adjourn today, we should adjourn in his memory and honor.
You will make a motion to, you
And
making a motion to adjourn in his honor?
In memory.
His memory.
Yes.
Got a second?
A second.
Okay. Anybody else want to comments?
Frank Sauer was the coolest guy in town.
Yeah.
He's a super guy.
Very cool.
I think we all,
Yeah.
everybody's been touched by him and his wife, the family, in some way in our town. He's a great person. Call roll.
Commissioner Waller,
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner,
Yes.
Commissioner May,
Yes.
Mayor Crane.
Yes, we're adjourned.